Okay, hi everyone. So welcome to our class on CSS selectors. Yeah, I know I dropped some things on the group, but basically what we'll be doing today is that we'll just look at these five selectors: the element selector, the class selector, the ID selector, the attribute selector, and the universal selector. So what is a CSS selector, or what does it help do? So the CSS selector helps you choose where to apply a CSS rule. Now it is that part that selects the HTML in order to apply whatever rule goes in between the curly braces. So quickly, I'll just start with the element selector. Yeah, so quickly, I'll just start with the element selector. Now, yeah, so I'll just start with the element selector. So now let's say we want to change the color of this text, CSS selectors. So let's say we want to change the color of this text to blue. So what we just do is that we pick the HTML, the tag in the HTML, and then we use it as the selector. It is best advised that you copy the tag when trying to apply the rule, just so as to, okay, so let's change it to red. Now it is okay, so I'll just show preview again. Oh, okay, now the reason why it's not connecting is because I've not linked my CSS. So I'll just do that immediately. Link real style sheet, then my href dot css styles. Very good. So now it has changed to red, and the reason why it can change to red is because I picked h1. So now whatever comes before the curly brace is called the selector. So in this case, in the element selector here, h1 is my selector. So that is that for element selector. So let's just change this to elements. Yeah, so this is for the element selector. So now we'll just go over to the class selector. So in the class selector, what you have is that okay, so let me just run through another example again. I'll just do something quickly so that we can see. So now let's assume that blue, green, red. Now, so let's assume that I want to pick just the first item there, that's red, and I want to change the color of that text to red. Now, if I select H1 as the selector here, it will pick everything and change it to red. The reason is because I just picked only H1. Now, and it is in the mind of the language of the CSS, it is assuming that you want to change every item here that has H1 as the opening tag. So now in a case like this that we might want to select a specific item here. Now let's say want to just, because we are trying to change just the first one here, we just want to change this one to red and not all of them. So what we'll be trying to use next is that we would use the class selector. So now in the class selector, so a class is something that you can add as an attribute. So you can add it as an attribute in the opening tag of your HTML. So let's say we'll give this a class and let's call it retex. So now in the class selector, like I told you, in order to avoid errors and mistakes, just copy and then use it as your selector. So now what I'm using as my selector here is that I'm copying this text that is in between the quotation mark, red text. So I'm copying it and then I'll use it as my selector here. Now for the class selector, you have a dot before whatever you are writing. Color red. Now if you see, only one item here changed to red. The reason is because I gave it a class. I gave the first one a class. And that's the reason why it can change, just that one. Now, although all of them are H1s, but now there is a H1, there's a specific H1 there that has a class. So now, let's just see something else. Let us just see something else. Quickly. So let's assume that we want to change two items. So let's give this one, let's make this one a paragraph. So let's make this one a paragraph. So let's say you want to change both the H1, let's change this to H2. So let's say we want to change both H1 and then the paragraph blue. We want to change them to color red. So what we just do is that we do the same, we give it a class. And if you look, immediately it has changed to red. Okay, so the next after that is the ID selector. So the ID selector, what happens, what's the difference with the class selector and the ID selector is that you have a hashtag in front of whatever you are using as the selector. So here, let me just wipe this out immediately. Yeah, so for the ID selector, you have a hashtag. Let's see, what example are we going to use now? Okay, so let's just do this again. You see, we have H2 here. And let's say we have red. Blue. Okay, now so for the ID selector, remember I told you it's just a hashtag. Of course, everybody knows hashtag, right? Okay, so what we do is that we have ID. By the time you do that, then you can just save it with a unique identifier. Now the reason is because for the ID, it is advised not to use it multiple times in your CSS because it can override your class selector. So it is best that you have just one specific thing as the identifier. It is even best that you use it just once. Like if you check the notes I sent the other time, just read through it, you see the difference between the ID selector and then the class selector. So here we have red, and we'll just do the same. We'll just copy it, then we'll go to our CSS. Now here we change it, we have the hashtag, then okay, so let's change this to something else, blue. You see now it has changed to blue. The reason is because we picked a specific ID, even though all of them